Welcome to a special edition of the BumbleKast. I'm your host, Ian Flynn, the Bumble King, and joining me as always is my Bumble co-host, Kyle, JCRB Krause.
Hello, I am here. And we also have a very special guest coming on to join us for this episode.
Yes, indeedy. Please welcome a wonderful patron, a saintly patron, our patron saint, if you will. Welcome Alex as our guest for today's episode.
Hello, that would be me.
Hi.
Mr. Flynn, Mr. Krause, it's an honor to be here with you guys tonight.
Oh, he's starting off right. I like this guy.
Wow.
Thank you so much for having me on, yeah.
Thank you for supporting the show. Tell the folks at home who you is and what you be.
Oh, well, what you see is what you get. Just a guy who loves adventure too. Just a patron here, and I've got some Sonic Q&A questions for us today. If that's all right?
Absolutely.
That's what the show's all about.
And go on the record that I did. Oh, yeah. I want to go ahead and go on the record real quick that I did not ask to be on the 420 show. That just sort of happened. I would be happy to talk about the Fire Emblem anniversary. But,
yes, we are recording this on 420. So, you know. Where's Blaze when you need her?
Let's see. What's a good thing to start us off with here?
And jump right on into it.
Shuffling my notes around.
No worries.
Okay, well, let's get started with this category here. Let's see. What is the highest level of intelligence that is achievable by Chow? Chow seem to have relatively short lifespans before reincarnating, so how do the more mature and intelligent-seeming Chow like the salesman in principle exist? Do these Chow perhaps need to be retconned for the lore, or what's going on there?
Well, I am no Chowologist myself, but I believe the implication is with each reincarnation, they retain aspects of the previous lives. You know, their stats remain and their base levels can evolve, if I'm not mistaken. So, like a A rank fully filled can become an S rank on the next life, I think. Again, it's been a while since I ranched Chow. So, one could extrapolate from there that if a Chow lives long enough, they can accrue a degree of intelligence that would allow them to be like the principal or the doctor or whatnot. Or you could just say it's a cute little thing on the side and it's a mini game. I mean, whichever you get the most mileage out of personally.
Oh, with that said then, if Chow are able to retain knowledge after each reincarnation, what update version should Cheese and Chocolate be on by now? Why aren't they able to talk, for example?
We don't know what their evolution's at. I mean, for all we know, Cheese has got like super crazy flight and power stats, but they're not reflective in his appearance. Does that show up until after the first molting? Goodness, could he actually still be like a baby Chow with that much power?
I don't screw with Cheese. I'm just going to say that. Don't mess with him.
It's not a good idea. You cheddar think twice before messing with Cheese.
Staying on the topic of Chow for just a few more questions, though. Simply, are Chow from space?
I
feel as though the movie posters are a bit tongue-in-cheek in a way.
Oh, sure. In universe, it's fun. But the origins of the Chow are a mystery. And the way with legends is you never know what the true origin is. Stories change and evolve over time. Who can say, really?
Very well, then. It's part of what brought me here today, actually, was a previous question I had asked you about sort of to describe the relationship between Chow and Emeralds. And I know that there are some things we can't really say about that at the moment.
Hashtag knowing smile, I guess. Not even that, I guess.
I do have any number of theories about the Chow written down at this point. Would like to kind of narrow down a bit of what might be irrelevant to the topic. So let me try this question then. Which came first, Sonic or the Speed Chow who looks like Sonic? Is this a sort of cosmic coincidence, or could there be some relation between the Chow and Sonic Folkians?
I would imagine Sonic came first, because what was it, pure speed type is Sonic-esque, but he doesn't have the like full-on blue and the look to him. So, yeah, we'll say Sonic came first. I mean, it's got to be, because otherwise, you've got the other character, Chow, and that doesn't make sense that they would predate the characters themselves. That'd be silly. And as we know, the continuity to Sonic is so airtight that we can't entertain such silliness.
Oh, very well then. Let's ask an easier one. This is one I've seen floating around on Discord. I'm surprised it hasn't been asked already. What do Chow taste like?
I imagine that they're very light and refreshing in general. Like a very mild jelly. But then, whatever typing they are will influence the flavor.
Uh-oh.
Nobody can hear me, I take it?
Weird gelatin. I can hear you.
Okay.
Oh, no.
Yeah, you're fine.
Like the
You're
sound
fine.
of that just...
Okay.
It's apparently a bad idea to print out my notes, so I'm having to shuffle around a bit.
No worries. I see
worries.
some folks in chat saying they can't hear me.
No,
Like,
sounds like
come
it's an issue on their end.
If the Gizoid are no longer connected to the Nocturnus clan, could we assume instead that Emerald might have been built by the same creator of Omo Chow? Emerald's copying ability isn't too unlike the way Chow copy animals, I think.
I mean, you're not wrong, but I feel like Omo Chow's design is more modern in its kind of clockwork depiction, whereas Emerald is strangely advanced, but still kind of old world tech. So I would think that Emerald predates Omo Chow, but who exactly created Omo Chow is, forever a mystery.
One of the previous questions I'd asked, a bit jokingly, was, do you think that Omo Chow could have been built by dodanpa's kingdom to work for racing events? And the question I sort of wanted to tack onto that, but I'll ask it now. Is dodanpa a reusable character? Would he be available to IDW under the right storylines, or is he in a bit of a bubble, having been made to host a specific spinoff?
I don't know, because I don't think we've been chomping at the bit to bring back dodanpa, but I don't think he's off limits.
Only one way to find out.
Fair enough.
But yeah, I mean, maybe I don't know. It's dodanpa, and his whole shtick is kind of weird because apparently there's a whole other planet that's within reasonable transit, and it's known on Sonic's world. So I guess it's in the solar system.
It's just another one of those random planetoids that's orbiting around Sonic's world. You got Lost Hex and Little Planet, and Angel Island is there too. It's like it's getting real crowded up there.
It's just kind of weird to think that despite the fact that dodanpa is on a different planet, he's still narratively easier to access than Silver or Blaze. I don't like that realization. That has me nettled.
Don't worry, I do have some questions about Silver later.
Alrighty.
That sort of answers one of the next questions I'd possibly written down. Do you think that the Donpa Kingdom could be within the Soul Dimension?
No, I'm pretty sure it's in Sonic's dimension. Just because dodanpa doesn't mention anything about dimensional travel, from what I remember, it was just taking a rocket.
Okay then. Going back to a question about the Gizoid, well, not exactly, but in the English dub of Sonic X, Emerald's name is pronounced as ML, and this got me thinking, now that he's a part of Cream's family, should Jimral be nicknamed Caramel?
I mean, it works. I can't deny that.
And back to the Soul Dimension for a moment. Would the lack of Marine's presence in IDW so far have anything to do with her unexplained new power? Now, you'd mentioned having an idea for her rejected at one point, and have also said that when working on the Encyclopedia, reaching out to SEGA, they didn't have much to say back about her. Is there maybe a line between these 2 points?
No. The reason why we couldn't use her at the end of the Metal Virus epilogue was SEGA didn't want to introduce a new character at the tail end of a storyline. Same reason why Cream, who originally was going to show up in the finale to Neo Metal's Revenge, was cut because they didn't want a new character showing up at the end of the story. Now, I don't mean to imply that Sega is saying that they're brand new characters. They're just saying that they were new to the storyline and they didn't think it really apropos to introduce a new character into the narrative so late in the game. And you know what? Fair enough. I see where they're coming from on that. Because if you are not a Sonic fan, you aren't necessarily going to know who Cream is, and you definitely aren't going to know who Marine is. They're more fan favorite, kind of closer to the fringe of the fandom and franchise. So that's where that came from. But she's perfectly on the table for usage in other contexts.
Oh, very well then. That sort of goes back to a question I heard you answer once about why it took so long to get Omega into the storyline. It just would have been too much for the cast to handle during the Neo Metal story, right?
In Omega's case, it just didn't quite fit. Because with Neo Metal, it was kind of a coming together of the friends, and Omega, his relationship with Shadow notwithstanding, isn't really buddy-buddy with anybody. That's kind of his charm, is he's charmless, I guess. But, you know, the first year of IDW was building the world and building the characters and building the relationships. So this was a culmination of that. Cream, I figured, would fit in because of her relationship with Amy. I thought that would have been an easy enough explanation, but at the same time, that would have been yet another character to showcase in the big fracas at the end, so it was probably the best call to cut her out.
All right, then. But back to Marine for just a moment. From the very brief bit of it that we see, her power reminds me of the series' green bubble shields. How well do you think a set of abilities based around this idea could work?
Might be an interesting gimmick for her if she were based around the various shield types. That might lead to some interesting gameplay. I mean, we still don't know what that thing was she launched. Was it an energy thing? Was it a key blast? Was it a water blast? I mean, her name is Marine. The game focused around sea travel. We've already got one pyrokinetic. I would imagine a hydrokinetic would make sense as well. But even with the kind of tangential pseudo confirmation in Encyclopedia, I'm not super confident with that. So hopefully we can get that nailed down and explored at some point. But I don't think that's on anybody's agenda at the moment.
Going to take that to segue into another question I've got written down here. How would you imagine Surge and Kit working in terms of gameplay?
Oh, they're absolutely easy to... They're Sonic and Tails. I mean, Surge is straight up Sonic. I've already seen some folks like mod her into, like, was it SA1 or SA2? It doesn't matter. I mean, she just plays like Sonic and Shadow does. Boom, easy. Kit, in terms of normal mobility, would be Tails-esque. We've already got him kind of propelling himself with the water pressure the way Tails propels himself by spinning the tails behind him when he runs. He doesn't fly so much as he, you know, kind of crawls around on his creepy water tentacles, but conceivably that could function the same way mechanically. We haven't really seen a lot of Tails in 3D.
Very true.
I mean, yeah, we saw him in SA1 clearly, you know, in in Sonic Heroes. Yes, he was flying, but I feel like it's not quite the same as SA1 because it wasn't really Tails flying. It was, here's the flying configuration of the team. Maybe I'm splitting hairs, but I feel like that's fundamentally different in terms of mechanics. And Sonic 06, I mean, yes, he's got flying mechanics there, but I don't think that's a great indication of anybody's movesets overall. But Kit, I see him working more easily as a boss character, but you could make him work in a Tails-like fashion. Like, he doesn't have to fly lifted like Tails does. He flies more like the water pack out of Mario Sunshine, propelled upwards rather than lifted upwards.
There's not really anything that Surge's electric generation would add to her, sort of like the difference between Sonic and Blaze.
I mean, you could add in some little perks here and there, like Blaze could walk on fire traps that Sonic couldn't. So, you know, if there's electrical traps, Surge could bypass those. I would imagine it would be mostly a cosmetic thing because Surge at her core is built to be copy of Sonic in terms of abilities. So fundamentally, she should play very much like Sonic or Shadow. I mean, maybe there's a fun way to do it. Like, one of the few neat things 06 did was, Shadow's particular rage meter, chaos meter, whatever it was, gave him a few extra bonus abilities to stand out against Sonic. So maybe you could do something like that with Surge, where she has, instead of maybe a boost gauge, she's got like a static gauge. Maybe something akin to like the plasma ability out of Kirby. You build up enough friction, enough static, and she can generate an electro shield or get that double jump out of the lightning shield or fire off a bolt or something. I don't know. The key to that would be, not getting too complex with the character moveset, because I feel like that's a problem that some of the modern games have. But I'm not a game dev. I'm sure somebody can come up with something better.
Well, first step is just to start getting them in the games anyway, isn't it? Now, I know that there's recently been an influx of questions about Shadow since the headline about Team Dark recently resurfaced. I want to say that this list does predate that a little bit, but I do want to ask a few things about him going forward. Shadow's characterization has been a bit of a roller coaster, and regardless of whatever Sega's current expectations for him may be now, knowing where the character's been, where do you think that his personal journey should end?
End? It's never going to end. This license is built on there I go, trying to use big words and failing. It's everything's going to continue to go on and on. You have to create the illusion of progression because you have to keep the brand recognizable from year to year. Sonic of Sonic Adventure is basically the same character we have today. There's nuance, to be sure, and you can make an argument that different interpretations could be seen as changes in the character, but when you get down to it, he is, as you said at the beginning of the show, just a guy who loves adventure. Different writers and different directors have just put it under a different lens. So for Shadow, I don't know, number one, he needs to get a personality again. That would be a key driving point to how he just interacts with any narrative that he's in. And I would like to see him go somewhere, do something, rather than return to his tortured past, which seems to be all that he has done. And that was serviceable for a time. Sonic Adventure 2, that was his whole point. That was his introduction. That was his driving force, his motivator. That's fine. That's great. That's perfect. That works. Heroes, the amnesia thing. Who am I? What is my purpose? What is my goal? Am I even me? That's a neat progression. It still kind of dwells with the past and his identity, but it's a step in the next direction. Shadow the Hedgehog, his game. Take your pick of whichever direction you want to go with it, but it's still really tied to where he's from. He was a creation of Black Doom. He was this, he was that, and he's reacting to all that. And so Shadow's game ending with him saying, okay, the past is the past. It's time to forge my new identity moving forward is a great cutoff point. We just haven't seen anything really materialize from that.
It's interesting that we're in a position now where it's almost like this character is going to need a third redemption arc.
I don't know about redemption arc. He just needs something. He needs to do something. He needs a reason. He needs a motivation. Like Sonic's is pretty easy. Like he is all about freedom of movement, freedom of choice, freedom for, to make your own mistakes. Doesn't matter whether it's morally right or legally right. He's going to do what he feels like he should do. And he's going to ensure that everyone has the option to do that as well. And that's such a nice, broad, and malleable mindset that it works for him. You can use that for a long period of time, and it doesn't necessarily get stale because you can approach it from different directions. Shadow's current motivation, as far as I am aware, is he seeks out strong opponents. And that is not sustainable. That is the very bare bones for like a tournament arc. But that gets real boring real fast because every opponent he faces, okay, he has to defeat them. Well, now you got to introduce an opponent. Well, why do we care who this opponent is? Because all we know is that Shadow's going to soften his knuckles on him, and then that's it. If that character comes back, well, all right, now we're more interested in that antagonist to Shadow because they're coming back from their defeat. Why do they want to face Shadow again? Why are they fighting him to begin with? All the focus is on the opponent when it really should be on Shadow. You know, where you have to build up so much for him to take it down, and he doesn't gain anything from that. So I just feel like he needs some kind of core principle that is broad and malleable like Sonic's, so that he can be put into different situations that can explore those ideas without being tied down to something too precise, I guess, too acute.
Well, somewhere in all that is pretty much the answer to my next question that I had written down, and that was, do you think that a proper call to action could be the return of Infinite? I imagine he is still holding on tight to that grudge against Shadow, but it would be sort of just a short-term storyline.
I mean, it certainly has impetus for Infinite. I mean, Infinite's got loads of room to come back and have an axe to grind with Sonic and Shadow and just about everybody, to be honest. So, sure, Infinite could come back and be an antagonist super easy. That's great. He's got mileage on him. It's just that doesn't do anything for Shadow. You know, because that in that scenario, it's Infinite's grudge, it's Infinite's revenge, it's his hang-ups, it's his drive, and Shadow is the focal point. That doesn't do anything for Shadow's character. Like, does he care that Infinite is mad at him? Does he fear Infinite? Is he worried about Infinite? Is he worried about what Infinite will do? How does he see Infinite? What about that confrontation does something for Shadow? Like, even Sonic has a smidgen of reaction to it where, you know, he seems to actually be pissed at what Infinite has done and is legit angry at him. Like, he wants to, like, not just defeat him, he wants to stop the dude. Shadow doesn't even have that. And it's like, you need more. You can't, if you're so stoic that you're just a board, you get boring. So, like, I think I belabored the point.
Hard to respond to that. I definitely agree. Well, as far as the stoic Shadow that we know currently, could the reason Shadow is denying his old friends be because he doesn't want to have them used against him like they were in episode Shadow of Sonic Forces?
I think you're extrapolating, and that's not a bad thing. I mean, hell, that's been my career. But that's not it's not what's actually being presented. That's taking what is there and trying to build off it. I don't think there's any subtle implications to be found. I think that's you spinning gold from straw.
Well, moving right along. While playing the expert mode of Shadow the Hedgehog, there's a special quote from the GUN commander where he apologizes to Shadow, says that he's recently become a grandfather, and invites Shadow over. Should we eventually see the return of GUN, would this particular interaction be something that you might like to explore more with their characters?
I would love to, because I love that line to death. That is such a neat little thing, and I hate that it's locked behind expert mode, because it's a pain to play. I don't know if and when we'll get the chance to really explore any of the human elements, but yeah, I would love it if we could follow up on that. It's, yet again, someone associated with Shadow having their character arc, and Shadow himself just kind of being reactive to it. But if we could do something with that, you know, what is Shadow's opinion of it at all? That would be neat.
I mean, the fact that him and the commander both thought of Maria as family and what happened to her, putting them on both sides just for the same thing, I think the two coming together as family would really be the ending that story might deserve, in a way.
It would be nice. I don't know if Shadow would allow himself to accept himself as part of a family. Even with some of his earlier characterizations, I don't think he would want to make that committed of a relationship out of concern, out of fear of losing that kind of connection again. Arguably, he may not even feel like he deserves such a connection, that he feels like he's so much of an outsider that he can't be part of a family again. And you know what? That would be a great way to explore it. Like, you know, what is his dynamic with Team Dark? He doesn't want to be part of a team. He doesn't want friends. You know, if he is alone, he can't be hurt like that. But they're people that he can rely on, that he can trust aren't going to nag him when he decides to punt somebody off a cliff. And, you know, you need a support network. No hedgehog is island. So it would be interesting to explore that. You know, interesting to have perhaps the gun commander offer that olive branch and Shadow declining and explore why. It would be neat to do that. I don't know if we can.
In the future of Sonic 06, even though Shadow is immortal, it's explained that he's MIA due to being betrayed by Omega and imprisoned. I don't believe much is said about when or why this betrayal took place, but would Omega do this of his own free will? What are your thoughts?
From what I remember, in the bad timeline, Elise releases Iblis, the world is led to ruin, and for some reason Shadow is blamed for it. I think that detail's kind of glossed over. And then Omega is tasked with bringing Shadow down. Who gave that order? Why Omega chose to do so? It's from what I remember, it's not really detailed. I mean, you might assume Gun, because they kind of do that to Shadow. That's kind of their thing. And, you know, Omega's the last in the E100 line. He's supposed to be the best of the best. Perhaps he saw it as a personal challenge. That would be a great thing to explore, too. Is like, did he do it because he was under orders? Did he do it because he thought it would be a nice challenge? Did he do it because he didn't want anybody else putting Shadow down? If somebody's going to do it, it's going to be him. Kind of a mercy kill sort of thing. It would be great to explore any kind of nuance with Omega, since he's very much a blunt object. As to why officially, I don't know.
It may be something that I think it could really tie into exploring more of Shadow's interaction with the GUN commander, because in the future, he would probably have to have been replaced. So would it be someone new coming into GUN who would be willing to, you know, not overlook things that Shadow has done in the past and still see him as a liability? Would that be how the blame gets put onto him then? I don't know.
I mean, that could be. And that would be an interesting way to... I mean, on the one hand, it would be kind of neat in terms of, you know, the last connection Shadow had to a gun he could trust is the commander stepping down and being replaced. But then you kind of recycle the whole, there is a gun commander who is out to get Shadow. And that's what we had in Shadow's game. I mean, unless you can find a new way to spin it, that's kind of retreading old ground.
Very true, very true. Now, on another question related to Omega here, and you sort of mentioned this again, do you think that Omega could have been built using recycled parts of both Gamma and Beta? Gamma's defect that allows him to go against Eggman, I think that his superiority complex seems like something that could have come from Beta, who was definitely like a rival to Gamma.
Yeah. I mean, it's a little hard to say since the cinematics and adventure were, you know, early 3D in-engine cinematics. So when you see Beta Mark II and Gamma blow up, it looks like they're freaking atomized. Like there's nothing left. But that's probably because the Dreamcast couldn't handle, you know, individual polygons as its pieces blow apart. Then you also have to take into account the E1000s and Chaos Gamma. If they were modeled after the original E102, or were they using leftover parts? It's hard to say. I'm inclined to think that it's just Omega as himself. I mean, I know I'd made the connection between him and Gamma in Universe, but that was trying to tie off things in a looser continuity. In just plain old B-flat modern Sonic continuity, I kind of like the idea that it's Omega with this very singular focus and throwing a temper tantrum, basically. He is his own robot, and he is making his own choices, and it's also a different form of rebellion, because Gamma's was kind of a mission of mercy to take out the other E100s, free the animals within, end Eggman's tyranny. Omega's is purely selfish. He feels like he was slighted, so he's going to tear down everything to prove that he shouldn't have been snubbed. Wah. It's very petulant, and I feel like it's very different than Gamma's kind of more noble lone samurai depiction.
Well, and we sort of accidentally answered this question a bit when talking about dodanpa earlier, but I did have it written down, so I do kind of want to bring it up again. But will there be an explanation for Silver's time-traveling antics whenever they need to be used again in the future?
Yes. And that's all I can say.
That'll work. But the thing about time travel that bothers me so much is, this is another thing I wrote down. I'm not even entirely sure what the question that I want to ask is here, but if Silver currently resides in the furthest point of the future where all is well, then logically it's like there's nothing that can happen in the present that hasn't already been accounted for at the current point in time where he is. Mm-hmm. So how uniquely and challenging is it then just to get him involved into a story in the present, I figure?
That's because it's a very messy time travel thing. It's I am not fond of how time travel is handled in Sonic, but how and why Silver returns to deal with issues in the past is something that will be addressed in the future. It's not what I expected. I don't think it's something anybody expected, to be honest, but there is an answer, and it will be interesting to see how it is explored in the years to come.
Well, that is great to know about.
Intriguing.
Let me just, preface that, put an asterisk on it, and say, be patient with this little plot point as it comes trickling out. We're all figuring this out together.
Oh, understandable. But talking about characters we know from the future, Dr. Starline has described how men such as himself and Dr. Eggman are not amorous creatures, and I'm puzzled by the fact that Eggman has a descendant. How sure are we that Eggman Nega isn't a robot, and could he start to be cooler if he were one?
That might explain his fashion sense. It's just procedurally generated. For all we know, Eggman decided he was getting old and, made a bunch of test tube babies and flung them out into the world saying, "Go, be my progeny. Conquer the world for me. Daddy's got to sit down. His back hurts." We don't know the circumstances of his descendants' dissension.
Very off topic, but just going in order now of what I've got written down. Do all of the special zones exist within the same space?
I think, and this is a big I think, do not put this as the canonical answer. This could be very wrong. But I think the special stages are treated as non-canon. They're more of a purely gameplay feature. That being said, I like the idea that the special zones are all one place and that they're just so chaotic that they are constantly reshaping and reforming themselves. So, in Sonic 1, why are there giant birds and fish floating in the background while crystalline mazes tumble through the void? I don't know. Chaos Emeralds do crazy stuff to the universe, man. Sonic 2, why is it half pipes now? Chaos energy. That's what it do. That's how it has rendered space-time in the special zone, this particular incarnation. Anything can happen.
I'll go ahead with my next question, even though that may have taken care of it. But does the stage Radiant Emerald from Sonic R take place within the special zones?
I get this brought up a lot. There's something in the lyrics or something in the manual or something where it says you're actually in the Emerald as you're racing around.
Yeah, it's in the lyrics.
Okay. But I wouldn't get too hung up on the canon of Sonic R. It's like 99% rule of cool.
I just know that we haven't been able to see the characters from that game resurface, and I've just sort of wondered about the various locations as far as where they fit into canon in different ways, I guess.
As far as I am aware, Sonic R is technically part of the classic canon. and we were able to utilize those characters in the special. So I think with classic Sonic, you can kind of, I hate to use this term, but look at it as kind of loose continuity, where stuff happens, there are assets, just don't think too hard about it.
Getting into a bit of theory crafting, do you think that the Chow could have come from wherever the special zones exist? After all, they're like colorful obstacle courses, which Chow are famous for going through.
That is a interesting point, he said, dodging the question.
Very well, then. Well, speaking of where characters are really from, in the opening of her story from Sonic Adventure, she talks about Station Square as though she's been living there for quite some time, and having recently confirmed that all games take place in one world, could this actually be her hometown?
Maybe. I mean, she's an enterprising young woman. Maybe she's moved. Maybe she's got a couple places that she can call home. But it does seem to imply that she at least has a rental unit somewhere in Station Square. And that's a big bag of groceries. Yeah, is she taking that to a hotel? I don't think so. Who really cooks at a hotel? I mean, honestly, now. And this is before Airbnb, so maybe she's got like a flat down in like Central Station Square.
I believe she was shown to have her own apartment in like Sonic X for a couple odd episodes.
And she does have a house in Battle.
Oh, very true.
Where was that? Was that in Central City? Or was that in Emerald Town? Can't remember now. But I mean, part of her MO, especially back then, was chasing after Sonic, so it would make sense that she had a couple places to chill out in her endless pursuit of her amour.
Adventure 2 establishes that Chaos is no longer inside of the Master Emerald. It's only after this that we really begin to see Knuckles going on various adventures and seemingly not worried about the Emerald so much. Was keeping Chaos contained meant to be the main reason why guarding the Emerald was so important?
I think initially, but I don't think Knuckles knew about it. Like, he has no idea what Chaos is when the Emerald shatters. Like, he has no idea what the context of it all is until he gets the flashbacks from Tikal. So we don't know when, why, or how Knuckles was put on duty, but presumably whoever it was who said, hey, you're sitting on this rock now, at least had some idea that it was important. Maybe the details got lost over time. The whole gap between the destruction of the Knuckles tribe and Knuckles doing his thing is a great big question mark.
When I know you've mentioned on several occasions now that Knuckles needs a way to finally get off of Angel Island, and would the easiest solution for this have been to just keep Tikal or Chaos around so they could take over the Guardian position?
I think it's an elegant and straightforward solution myself. You just gotta convince certain people of that.
Is the ancient prophecy seen in Hidden Palace Zone part of the reason that only male hedgehogs can go super? Is there any old story behind the creation of that prophecy that remains to be told, or is this just coincidence?
I think the mural in Hidden Palace Zone was a neat little foreshadowing to Doomsday Zone, and that was as far as the thinking went at the time. And Sonic fans, being the infinite well of creativity that they are, have tried to find greater meaning in it. The whole male exclusive super thing is unsavory, and I'm hoping that might get, if not repealed, then adjusted down the line.
Not only hedgehogs, but male hedgehogs is just so specifically biased against Amy. If anyone needs to break the mold, it really needs to be her.
Yep.
All right. It's been said that one team who was originally planned for Sonic Heroes could have been Mighty, Ray, and Metal Sonic. This story may have brought the three together. Could we have seen Metal Sonic switch to the good side then?
I don't know, man. That list of potential teams was just wild, mind-blowing. It was like, oh, it could have been. So, I don't know. I really have no idea how they would have... Because at that point, I don't think there was even a story to be considered. I think they were just throwing character combos together. So I have no idea what context it would have been in. But, man, that would have been a weird one. Like, never mind seeing Mighty and Ray come back. That would have been freaking cool. But to be paired with Metal Sonic, of all characters, why? It's weird. It would have been neat, but it was weird.
I believe there was the pairing of E102, Chaos, and Big the Cat. That also leaves some questions.
Yeah, I mean... Would that have just been like the non-canon joke team? Again, Gamma blowed up real good. What's he doing back there? What kind of banter would we have between the silent drippy monster, the super stoic businesslike machine, and the ever aloof Big?
Oh, and I do have a question about him. Could Big the Cat's name have been partially inspired by Bigfoot? I could easily imagine him being a local myth for people in the Mystic Ruins.
I wouldn't be surprised, because there is a researcher in the Mystic Ruin jungles who's trying to track down Big, and he's like, have you seen the size of these footprints? There's clearly some kind of megafauna out here, or something to that effect. And, you just go a couple screens down the river, and there's Big's house, and he's like, hi, I'm Big.
What types of jobs do the Chaotix do on a daily basis? How do they keep the lights on for the detective agency? And when Vector seems worried about the bills, is it more so because he's bad with paperwork or because they don't have steady funds?
I think it's implied that they are privatized for hire, and getting by day to day in a gig economy is a nightmare anyway, but that they can't really turn down hard luck cases. So I just imagine that they have this revolving door of people coming in all weepy-eyed that they've been screwed by the system or they've been wronged by someone, and they have no one else to turn to. They've heard the Chaotix can solve any problem. They can't really pay, but they have nowhere else to go. And Vector's like, I'm so tired of eating ramen, but I can't say, though, we'll take the case.
I have to wonder how many times they've thought about hanging it up and being Central City Door Dashers.
I mean, maybe that too. God, can you imagine like this whole bit of them doing odd jobs, and that somehow manages to help them solve a case?
Here's an odd one. Would Hawk Wolf be called Hawk Wolf the Wolf, or what would his full title be?
I'm not 100% sure on that. And I'm also assuming it's Hake Wolf. But
okay, yeah.
Based off of the German origin, I could be wrong. I mean, his poor name has been mangled a fair bit, but it's hyphenated, so I am inclined to say Hakewolf the Wolf, but that is kind of, that doesn't exactly roll off the tongue. I mean, it may be kind of in the vein of Amy Rose, where you don't really say Amy Rose the Hedgehog. And that's just kind of weird. So maybe he just gets away with Hake Wolf. I don't know. We'll have to see if he actually shows up again.
It is a bit odd that he's named after a German aircraft while being the only boss who drives a scooter. Do you think that he had... I mean, could he and Behringer have switched places at some point?
Maybe. I mean, it is a flying scooter. It does fly.
If we were to see the cast of Tails Sky Patrol return in Sonic's classic universe, how would you go about portraying each of them this time around? Have you thought about it?
I would, kind of the same way as when we introduced them back in the old Archie book, is look at what limited characterization their sprites give us and kind of extrapolate on that. Hake Wolf looks like he's kind of rude and kind of goofy, doesn't take things too seriously. Behringer looks like he's always angry. And Karatia seems to be just kind of aloof and flirty. So I feel like that is enough of a foundation to build on. And it would depend on how much time and space we got with them and how deeply we could explore the characters.
This is a question I forgot to ask a moment ago, but and it may be a familiar one as well. Who would be your choice to round out a trio with Mighty and Ray?
That's the tricky one, because things don't split up evenly amongst the old classic characters, I mean, yeah, Mighty was really fast. I mean, he was a recolored Sonic sprite. Let's not pretend, but he's associated with his strength. His name's freaking Mighty, So he's got to be the power type. And Ray is the flying squirrel. He's got to be the fly type. But who's left to do speed? I mean, the Chaotix are already kind of spoken for. And
Honey is more of another power type. But... yeah,
and she also kind of has a gliding technique, so you could also argue maybe flying. So, I mean, you could maybe put Mighty in the speed category if we've got Honey backing up in power, but I don't know. It's a little weird.
In terms of characters, it might be like loose threads, maybe Speedy from Tails Adventure.
Yeah, maybe, but then it's kind of the same issue with Metal Sonic. Why is a villain teaming up with the heroes? It's not impossible, to be sure, but I kind of feel like it should be grouped by alignment as well. Why would it make sense for these three to be together generally? It wouldn't be that hard to explain why a villain is teaming up with heroes, but I don't know. Given how the other teams were built, it kind of gives you a second to go, huh, why? And then the others are just kind of like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
If Tails' adventure is meant to take place before Tails meets Sonic, then why is he able to learn the signature attacks of both Sonic and Knuckles?
Gameplay. That's all there is to it. Although, nah.
Oftentimes the easiest answer.
Yeah.
Oh, and we'd mentioned Honey the Cat a moment ago. In spite of being an originally scrapped reference to one of Sega's other arcade fighting games, Honey has managed to find her own fan following and even form something of her own identity within the Sonic franchise thanks to the comics. Now, given the option, are there any other Sega characters you would readapt into the Sonic cast as a new kind of legacy for them?
I mean, you know me, I love to mine all the minutia, but I kind of feel like out of what has been revived and acknowledged, we've gotten the cream of the crop. I mean, for completionist sake, I kind of want to see Heavy and Bomb come back, but we don't really need them. No, there aren't that many people chomping at the bit for them. I'm trying to think of anybody else, because then we're getting into like the super obscure stuff. Like, do we want to bring back the red and yellow Sonic from, what was it, Sega Sonic Brothers? That puzzle game that never got released? Like, yeah, I'm crazy enough to want to try to figure out something to do with them, but do we really need to? I feel like we would be better off reviving something like the Battlebird Armada or the Witch Carters or something with a little more substance. And at that point, God, we have so much to play with. I think it'd be better to utilize what we have rather than continue to mine.
And speaking of reviving, what are your overall thoughts on the game Billy Hatcher, and what ideas would you have for that franchise to make a return?
I'm not super familiar with Billy Hatcher outside of it had a really charming art design. I'm not super familiar with its lore or its gameplay, but I don't know. It had a fairly robust central cast. From what I know, it had a pretty straightforward story that you could explore. It needs a good game first and foremost. Like it's kind of like, correct me if I'm wrong, but the core gameplay was kind of like Katamari Damacy, but with platforming.
That sounds pretty accurate.
And I don't know if that mixes well, you know? Like, Katamari Damacy is great fun because it's goofy and it's challenging in its own right, but because you're focused on a core game mechanic, which is roll around and build up your star. When you add in that extra dimension of platforming, then the core of the gameplay, which is to continue to move forward, is undercut because now you have to stop and see where you're going. You have to make a calculated decision on how to progress rather than I'm on a roll, I'm going to keep rolling, I'm going to get even bigger. So I feel like right there, Billy Hatcher's core gameplay is almost at odds with itself. Again, I'm not a game developer. I'm just kind of speculating here. Somebody who has actually studied game mechanics might have a much better insight into it. But I feel like you need to look at Billy Hatcher and figure out what is his core gameplay going to be first. How is that going to be fun to do in multiple worlds or tracks or whatever format, and then worry about what story you hang on that.
Well, I know it's still possible with the Switch Joy-Cons today. I want to say there was definitely a missed opportunity as far as using the motion controls of the Wii era.
Did it have motion controls?
Pardon?
Did it have motion controls?
Oh no, it wasn't incorporated with the GameCube release, but where I say it was sort of been maybe a missed opportunity to not try and have a second game on the Wii, in my opinion.
Yeah, but see, I don't know how well the first game did, so it may have been not worth the expenditure. I don't know.
Very true. I sort of wanted to get your thoughts on the game since I know you mentioned at one point how much you'd love to merge the Knights series with Sonic, and you'd sort of made a comment about how it wouldn't be as easy to do with a series like Billy Hatcher.
I say that somewhat in ignorance, because again, I'm not super familiar with Billy's world, but what I feel like I know is like Billy in his world and his lore are very self-contained. They are fundamentally Billy Hatcher, whereas Knights is in a dream world, so that right there gives you a lot of latitude to place it anywhere within a real world scenario. And Sonic's trip into Imaginary World and Sonic Shuffle shows that bridge as well. So I feel like it'd be very easy to make those two pieces meet by having Dream World and Imaginary World somehow connected, which then bridges into Sonic. And you have Sonic's real world versus Knights' dream world, and the two can cross over with, fun cross-pollination while still being independent of each other. Billy's world, I feel like, is its own thing. So you'd have to build the bridge first before you link the two. I can see the humans of Knights walking around next to the humans of Sonic really easily. I can't see Billy's friends or the crows or that stuff existing in Sonic's world as easily, if you dig me.
Absolutely. I'm seeing I really overestimated how much mileage I was going to get out of this list of questions I had. This is what I was scrambling to find to start the show off with, but I decided to put it off till the end here, I guess. And then I'm going to lose track of it as soon as I mention it. Let's see here. How have the IDW comics been received in Japan so far? As the writer for upcoming games like Sonic Frontiers, how important is it to you to try and appeal to this demographic, knowing that it's Sega's home base?
I don't know, because I don't speak a lick of Japanese, and I am not within the social media circles, and I have zero access to sales data, so I don't know how well it's been received. And because we're writing these for the North American market first and foremost, it's not really a consideration I have. And that's not just for Japan, that's for all the other language regions, because I don't speak any of those languages, and I am culturally ignorant of what would be appealing to all those other regions. And trying to appeal to just English-speaking Sonic fans is already daunting enough. You want me to do it on a global scale? So all I can do is write the best Sonic stuff that I can, and as it gets translated and proliferated around the world, hopefully that those core ideas and stories translate well enough and resonate with other people. I mean, if it's well received in Japan, then hot diggity. That makes me happy. I'm glad even more people can enjoy it. If it's not as well received there as over here, then that's disappointing, but so it goes. You're not going to please all the people all the time.
The few things I've heard is that it's received pretty well, so
that is good. Now, the social media team for the localization and distribution company have been super cool. We've traded tweets back and forth a couple times, and somehow or another they started tweeting hashtag #ShyAwoo about Whisper. So that was kind of fun.
Well, Mr. Kyle, sorry to have kept you so quiet this episode. I do have a question for both of you here.
No worries.
How long have you both had the respective KNGI and Bumble King names? And what advice would you have for someone else who might be looking to start their own sort of personal brand?
We were just talking about this the other day. How old is KNGI?
Something, yeah. Well, I started doing my radio show podcast thing back in 2003, March 2003. So it's 19 years old. What would I do as far as like a personal brand? I don't know, man. This just kind of happened. I didn't like try. It wasn't my intention. I don't know. What do you think, Ian? You've been more of a brand, I think. You built up more of a brand as a writer.
I came up with the logo and name Bumble King in 2020? No, that's 2 years ago, idiot. 2000 or 2001, somewhere around there. I'm bad with time, okay?
Well, I know, but I didn't know that
bad. And I don't think I started using it until I was like actually writing for Sonic, because that would have been the old Bumble King forums. So that would have been what, 2005, 2006 ish.
Yeah, I think
And
you were. I think it was kind of around ish, but yeah, you really started using it sort of when you put together a website and then a forum. So, like a portfolio website you wanted.
The logo itself was meant to be very simple, so that one, I could draw it, and two, it could be easily replicated, so that if somebody took a shine to it, they could doodle it themselves and start a word of mouth thing from there. As for Bumble King, it was stupid enough to kind of make you pause and go, what? But it also is kind of fun enough that you don't immediately dismiss it as nonsense. So it's like, what is that? That's the Bumble King. A what? That prompts conversation. Bada bing, people are automatically telling people about the Bumble King. It's infectious. I'm a marketing genius.
I like how you slipped.
Look at all the stuff that I think we've sold like 5 things on the Bumble store.
I like it. I like how you slipped into Vector's voice there.
He would wear the little Bumble King bingle bongles if it'd get him $5. You know he would.
Of course he would.
Hey kids, it's me, the Bumble King. It's your birthday party. And little Timmy, tell your parents their check bounced, so if they could resolve that.
It's a big problem.
In terms of like branding and marketing, I have not done a great job with it. I think it's the Bumble King identity has been dragged up just because it's associated with me, and I have gained some notoriety over the years. It's not because Bumble King has done anything. Hell, BumbleKast is probably more recognizable than the parent brand at this point. But that was all because I had much bigger aspirations for publishing labels and identity and such that have not panned out. So for anyone who is thinking of branding themselves and creating a show like this, I would say keep your expectations humble and keep your presentation simple and accessible. Finding something that is memorable or at least quirky enough that it kind of sticks in someone's head. Like BumbleKast is not a pun. It's not really a clever slogan or joke, but it does roll off the tongue, and it does make you curious enough to say, well, what is a BumbleKast? What does that mean? That makes somebody pause long enough to at least give you a second look. And if you can come up with something wittier or something that's, straightforward enough, like look at Game Grumps, that tells you what their show is about right there. And it gives you the premise. It gives you who the hosts are in 2 words. That sells the show right there. So come up with something that is punchy, that is direct, and is descriptive without being too in the weeds, and start small. Like, with the whole reason the show is running at all is because Kyle had put so much time into KNGI and knew how to build, the very basics of a show. And from there, we kind of experimented a lot. So, cause how many years did we do commentary in addition to Q&A?
The commentaries, we only did a few. And it was like for a few months there we were doing.
I don't know.
Oh, you mean the movie? Oh, okay. You mean the topics, the regular discussion? Yeah. Okay, the discussion segments. I mean, that was about 120-ish episodes. So they're about, what was it, 2.5 years?
Yeah.
So yeah,
and we learned that wasn't working. So we changed formats into the Q&A and saw much more success. Yep. So, you may go into your project thinking, this is what I'm going to do. This is the project. This is what I will create. And this is what it will be forever and ever. Be flexible. If you're looking at the metrics, if you're looking at the feedback and it's just not working, step back and say, why? What is it about that's not resonating with the audience? What is working? And maybe shift your focus to that.
The thing about KNGI is that it was originally intended to be like a reference to radio call sign letters. So that was the intention. I had this idea of having my own radio station, basically, is what it boiled down to. So that's kind of where the idea for that came from, and why I went with that name. So if you're on the East Coast of the U.S., you're probably confused, like KNGI. Shouldn't it be WNGI? It's like, well, no, because I'm over here on the West Coast, so on the other side of the Mississippi. So, but yeah, I just the fact that I'm still using it 20 years later is just, I don't know, it's just a thing I stuck with. It's like my name, my online name, Kyle JCRB. I've been using this same online identity for probably at this point 25-ish years. So it's kind of ridiculous, but yeah, it's just, I don't know. And I think part of it is just because I'm too lazy to come up with any other sort of branding, but I don't know. I just stick with it, and it works for me, I guess. It's fine. It's no big deal. I take Ian's advice over mine. I just kind of accidentally stumbled into this. It's not like I was really setting out specifically to have this grand idea of a giant podcast network and everything. I didn't like podcasts didn't even really exist when I started. So
right, there was no template.
No, there was web radio, and there was terrestrial radio. Well, that was kind of more what I was thinking, was okay, like a kind of a radio station sort of thing. I couldn't afford to actually, host my own stream, but it was way more of a niche thing even than it is now. But yeah, I don't know. It was just something that I thought would be fun to do. Like, have your own radio station. It's like all these other radio stations exist, but they don't play video game music. I want one that plays video game music. And, well, now here we are. There's tons of them out there, but I'm just one of them.
And it's been going so long, the radio call sign is now retro.
It is. It kind of is.
Your branding right there.
It kind of is. Yeah. At this point.
I know it was sort of an odd question to get us started with here, but just as someone who doesn't have much of an online presence or has really found their creative calling yet, it's a very daunting task, and this has been very insightful to hear from both of you.
Yeah. Well, not everybody's got to have a an online brand or anything trying to make make yourself. You don't need to always necessarily make a name for yourself just in that way. I
mean, there's also the Field of Dreams approach, where if there's something that you enjoy, not even you don't have to be passionate about it. If you just enjoy something and you want to share that joy, you can put it out in the void. And if people respond to it, hey, neat. If nobody does, well, that's fine. You're putting it out there for you. And if you happen to have success off of it, then awesome. Good for you. And if it's just your thing, well, cool. Now you have a hobby. There's a kind of prevailing pressure to be the next influencer. The fact that is a word these days makes me feel old. But there's such a pressure to have these, highly polished, animated, fully produced episodes about whatever. And a single person, unless you're super talented with lots of free time, you're not going to be able to keep up with that. And you don't necessarily have to. I think we're kind of approaching almost a burnout stage. So, if you want to do something super casual and low key, that might be what the next big thing is.
Well, I'm sad to say that's going to just about do it for my question list here. Kyle, I do want to make a quick note. Congrats on over 500 episodes. I've been trying to catch up on a lot of them.
Oh, wow. Okay, thank you. Cool. Hope you didn't go back too far. Those early ones are real rough.
I forget the number. I started around the All Guile special, just as a fun one to.
Oh, okay. That's very recent. So, well, I mean, it's in terms of relativity, I suppose it's recent. But no, that was a fun one. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I've reached the part of the show where I really don't know what to say, but yeah, thanks again just so much for having me on. I do have one note written down here. I need to find it real quick. Tried to script myself as much as possible to keep the nerves in check. That said, I just want to say that I hope that I can really speak for everyone watching when I say how much I appreciate the open-mindedness and the fun attitude that you both bring in every episode of this show and try to handle the questions with. As hosts, you've been already such a big inspiration for me over the past few months, and it's why I finally felt comfortable enough to just go ahead and let myself do something like this for the first time, to join on the show with you, and it really means the world to me.
Thank you very much, and that means a lot to me, and we appreciate the patronage and that you came on, and that we could just have a fun old time geeking out about Sonic stuff.
Yep, for sure.
I really hate to be weirder than I am and launch into a whole Bumble testimonial, but still feel as though I'm pretty new over in the Discord community, but it's been a great experience so far. So I just want to give thanks to everyone over there. It's like I get to be around all these fun and new people, and getting to see all the projects and discussions going on. It gets to motivate me like a little bit more every day. I really enjoy it.
Yeah, we've managed to build up a pretty good community over there. So yeah, thanks to them, and thanks to you for being a part of it.
Absolutely.
Well, before we wrap it up, is there anything you want to plug? Any shout outs you want to give here at the very end?
That's about it for me. Just thanks to you guys. Thanks to everyone on Discord. It's been a great time.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Alex. Thank you, Kyle, for sitting there patiently while I talked my head off.
No problem. That's what I'm here for.
And that's going to wrap us up for this special edition of the BumbleKast. We will see you next time for more Q&A goodness here on the BumbleKast. Be good to yourselves, be good to each other, and we'll see you next time.
Goodbye. You've been listening to the BumbleKast, a co-production of Bumble King Comics and the KNGI Network. Original theme music composed by Ken Coda Snyder. Remixed intro by T-Lopes. Find out more information, along with podcast feeder links, MP3 downloads, and more at bumbleking.com and kngi.org.
We got this down to a fine science at this point.
We've finally figured out the format for this show after 7 years.